On February 6th, 2019, Circle found a new way to get out of bounds in the Seaside Kingdom. While most out-of-bounds tricks in Super Mario Odyssey tend to not be useful for speedrunning, this was a completely different story. Shortly after its discovery, Tuval posted a clip in the SMO Speedrunning Discord showcasing a route that goes out of bounds, grabs the gap in the ocean trench moon while staying out of bounds, and then afterwards, enters the Sphinx treasure room without talking to the Sphinx. This allowed for one more quick moon at the end of the any % Seaside Route. From there, more testing was done and a route for Seaside was finalized. The community determined that removing the Notes moon earlier in the kingdom in favor of the Sphinx moon would be fastest for RTA runs. We'll call this new trick Seaside Boundary Manipulation. So how does it work? Well, in Seaside Kingdom, the outlying boundary isn't exactly a strict invisible wall. It's much more of a force that pushes the player back. The longer the player is in the boundary, the more they are affected by this force. If the player leaves the active force area, it will be reset completely. This can be abused by repeatedly leaving the force's active zone and recapturing the Cheep Cheep further into that area. Because the Cheep Cheep will not be pushed back when captured, we can use him to enter the force's active zone further and further back. Since the game doesn't want us to be able to travel back this far, we can reach some walls that have no collision, allowing us to travel through them and move out of bounds. It's important to note that if you capture the Cheep Cheep while Mario is in this active zone, you will automatically be pushed back to the edge of the boundary after the capture animation finishes. This is likely because the force is being constantly applied to Mario during the entirety of the capture animation, so although you don't see it happening, you're constantly being pushed back. Upon the completed capture, your coordinates are successfully updated, resulting in this interesting zip effect. Now that that's been covered, let's move on to the route. The route itself is actually relatively easy to execute and likely is worthwhile to learn for most runners, especially since it's currently estimated to save 5 seconds. The route is going to start off exactly like the previous Seaside route, starting off with overlooking the beach, next going into the pipe to grab a rumble on the seaside floor, and then finally getting ride the jet stream without using a gushion. But after grabbing this moon, instead of traveling towards the Notes moon like you would in the old route, you'll instead be going directly to the Glass Palace to grab its treasure chest moon. There's a few different ways to get here, but as of right now, taking this Cheep Cheep is the fastest, so this is the movement we'll be going over. A good and easy way to do this is falling up the ledge and diving forward, roll boosting until crossing the midpoint of Bowser's footsteps, transitioning into a triple jump vector, and then finally down throwing shortly after Mario hits the water to capture the Cheep Cheep. Since down throwing like this is only possible on Joy-Cons, an alternative to this strat would be triple jumping, holding neutral as Mario hits the water so he starts to sink, moving forward, cap throwing, and homing onto the Cheep Cheep. Once the Cheep Cheep is captured, we can continue forward to the Glass Palace chest moon, avoiding obstacles along the way. From here the route continues again as normal, grabbing It's a Shortcut, Under a Dangerous Ceiling, Mercy Dory, and Bubbling Northern Reaches. Next is where the fun really begins though, because we are going to be heading out of bounds. First thing we're going to be doing is heading over to this spot on the edge of the map. I would not recommend traveling in a straight line to this location. If you do, you may start getting pushed back too soon, forcing you to swim back and try again. Next, you're going to want to uncapture the Cheep Cheep once he's a little bit past the edge of the yellow sand. A really good indicator as to whether the Cheep Cheep is in a good enough spot to perform the trick is his shadow. If it appears to be abruptly cut off by the seafloor, you should be good. After, you'll want to press A once to swim up and forward, cap throw back while continuing to swim away from the boundary, wait briefly, and finally shake your controller to home Cappy onto the Cheep Cheep. Assuming Cappy successfully homes onto the Cheep Cheep and you're far enough away, you should be able to swim down and forward, getting completely out of bounds. If Mario gets that strange zip effect we mentioned earlier, you were too close to the boundary when you recaptured the Cheep Cheep. If this happens, just swim backwards before swimming into the boundary again and then give it a retry. Now that we're out of bounds, we're going to have to carefully grab the next moon while remaining out of bounds. I personally recommend swimming down parallel to the moon and shaking your controller to attack. Doing this will extend your hitbox and let you grab the moon from much farther away. If for whatever reason you have a different preference for how to grab this moon, that's fine too. The important thing here is that you're able to remain out of bounds. Though if for some reason you do happen to go back in bounds, an easy backup is to just simply talk to the Sphinx and grab the moon that way. The answer to his quiz here is the 4th dialog box. Assuming you did everything correctly and didn't go back in bounds, you should be able to travel down further with the Cheep Cheep and hit the Sphinx Vault loading zone from behind, entering it without ever having to talk to the Sphinx. To finish off, all you need to do is swim forward a bit, spin through or cap through it normally to open the chest, and then swim directly into the moon. Once that's done, you'll have enough moons to travel to the next kingdom, so you can simply warp to the Odyssey and finish Seaside. Thank you so much again for watching my tutorial. Before I say anything else, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Circle. He was a big help with fact checking my understanding of the trick, and he also found them in it in the first place. So I left his Twitter down in the description if you want to give him some love. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment down below. I'll do my best to provide any help I can. And as always, if you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe. I will see you guys next time.